I want to start off by saying thank you for joining. Really cool to have you on as my first guest. Could you give me a little bit about what does your business do and who do you serve?
So I would say my business is serving a wide um, variety of clients, financial clients, individuals and businesses, but mostly individuals. And serve them in two ways in terms of the long-term investment goals, tax advice, and everything surrounding that investment journey, all the way from start to retirement, in some cases, even uh, children. So, where the parents invest for children, and then the other side, so the risk side, where clients need um, shortfalls covered in terms of death, disability, critical illness, and things like that, income protection on disability, etc. So, that's what my business entails, and I enjoy it.
That's awesome. And how did you get started in that?
So I had a long journey of doing small businesses as I grew up. And one of my goals was at age 26, I want to work for myself again because there was a journey where I had to uh, get a corporate job, if you can call it that again.
Yeah.
And it worked out that way. So it wasn't like I specifically aimed to do this, what I'm doing now, but I always had an interest in financial stuff. I did a built a board game in 2009, coincidentally before I joined this industry. And that took me about 2 years. It's never been marketed as such, but I still have the prototype. It's a financial board game that involves, all the nitty-gritties of life.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's how I ended up in this industry and in this business. That's the short of it.
Okay. This is back to the board game. Is it like a Monopoly but of the financial world?
That's right. So I find Monopoly has a lot to do with luck,
Yeah.
and there is some skill involved. This board game includes interest rates on debt, interest rates on or growth on investments. It's got a bit more. There's still the flashy side to it where you can buy nice stuff and buy houses and all of that. But it's a bit more realistic daily life. What I did was I researched some of the best board games in the world. Some of them are only available to corporates for corporate education. They're not available to retail customers.
Okay.
And so yeah, the case studies were one of the board games was Cashflow 202 and Cashflow 101 from Robert Kiyosaki. I can't remember because it's been so long ago that I've developed this game. But I went onto all the reviews, the Amazon reviews, and wherever I could find them. Mostly they were available in America. The one board game was a Singaporean board game or a Singaporean company that uses it for their corporate education to educate clients. So once again, that was the one that wasn't available in retail to the open to the public. Anyway, so then I researched the pros and cons and what people are complaining the most about and what do they like the most about. And then I also would try to be very strict at not making it too much of a luck game, a game of luck.
Mm.
So that's how I developed it. Yeah, it's got a real life feel to it, if you can put it that way.
That's really cool. It's a whole world I didn't know existed when you said like some board games are only available to corporates, but yeah, really cool. And you said
Yeah.
that you previously you were employed, right? And then you started your own thing.
Yes.
What made you like take that leap? Because at least from how I think of it, it is quite a leap going from somewhat stable employment to starting your own thing. So what was that spark that made you take the leap?
Firstly, I also want to clarify that I haven't started. What I'm doing currently is not as such, my own company, but it's my own practice within a licensed environment where I work under a license. But it is running your own business basically with certain criteria. Um, so what sparked it? Or sorry, if you can just repeat the last part of the question.
Yeah, essentially, what sparked taking that leap to Yeah, I know it's not your own like individual company, but you are working for yourself, and you're in control of everything now. What made you take that leap?
I think it's an extreme desire to not. One of them might be, how can I say? I don't think many people have that extreme desire to not be controlled by time, and by, because I'm a very hard worker, and I
Mm.
find that in a company, hard work can sometimes go unnoticed because you're part of a bigger cog of wheels, and all the gears are working together, and you might be either overlooked or it will take you longer to be seen by senior management in order to gain your full potential. So that was one of the biggest things. I definitely had a problem with working harder than certain people. I did get remunerated quite well, but there was a time when I felt I reached the ceiling in the company, and but this was over a period of only 3 years in that company. But definitely felt there was a ceiling.
Yeah.
I tried to um, become an independent consultant that would work for the company or do work for the company, but the company itself didn't like that move, I guess, because maybe I was valuable in the role that I was doing already, and which I understand from their point of view. And then, yeah, I just realized that it's going to be a drastic step. It really was a big financial knock to go away from a comfortable salary and to start fresh again. So I guess that deep desire to, because I've tasted that before,
Mm.
to work for myself, is what drove me to it. And yeah, it's in a way it can be devastating in a way. It depends how you look at it, but um, yeah, I was willing to make that sacrifice.
Mm. Like when you say devastating, like devastating making that move because it's such a big change.
Exactly, yeah. So it's um, my lifestyle had to change immediately. I preempted a lot of things. I sold my car at that time. I bought a very cheap car because I knew what was coming, and but I knew it was going to be. I knew I'm a hard worker. I'll make it, and I'll have to just stick it out for a few years or whatever at a lower pace or a lower income, if you can call it that. Um, so that was the, if you can call it, devastating effect. I think a
Yeah.
lot of people can't handle that. Um, uh, and I think that's a trap sometimes in life is we get comfortable with the way we live, and to take that risk to do something else usually causes a drop in your lifestyle initially.
Yeah. And would you say that's maybe one of the hardest parts of the early days of your own thing, or was there maybe something else that was also devastating or hard?
Um, I think that was definitely the hardest part because you question yourself,
Yeah.
did I do the right thing? I can count about 3 times that I was ready to give up in the first 2 years. And then the second part was building clients, getting clients.
Mm.
Sometimes days go by without any new business prospects. And yeah, you really don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Um, and pushing mentally through those points was points of the journey was very difficult.
That makes sense. And I think that self doubt is definitely something most entrepreneurs will face initially. Like, if you could give advice to an entrepreneur on how to like not avoid the self doubt, but to manage it, is there any advice you would give
Yeah,
them?
and I think one can also, I'll answer your question
Yeah.
right now, but I think one can also relate that to imposter syndrome. I don't know if you know
Yes.
the
Yes.
concept of imposter syndrome. If you always question yourself, but imposter syndrome can be such a good, uh, that concept can be such a good thing because it means you're always willing to improve yourself. If you are too arrogant about your skill set or where you're at, then you might not grow anymore. So it's actually in a good way, or it's good in a way to question yourself. So, um, sorry, what was the part of the question that I needed to answer? I got
No worries. So it was just so obviously self doubt and perhaps that imposter syndrome is going to be something that every entrepreneur faces starting out. Do you have any advice to other entrepreneurs on how to like manage that imposter syndrome or
Mm.
yeah?
So I thought about it the other day, actually, about this specific thing and this question. And I think one of the best lessons, um, and it's not, I would say it's not a cliche thing to think of, but is to read biographies
Okay.
or autobiographies. Um, then you find the journey. You can see the journey of other successful people, big CEOs, call them what you want, billionaires. See how they go through the journey, what goes through their mind, and what they have to deal with to get there. And you usually find um, you are in a similar position. You just can't see your future 10 years ahead yet, because you're in that same space.
Yeah.
And it's easy when you read a book. It looks so easy, but when you when you look into the details, you can see, but you are actually on the exact same journey if you start your own business or go your own way.
Fair enough, then I think that is very good advice. Is I haven't read that many autobiographies or biographies myself, but the ones that I have, indeed, it's usually somebody starting their own business. It's a small business. They don't know what they're doing, and that's the beginning of every businessman's or woman's journey, isn't it?
Yeah. Which autobiographies have you read or that you can remember that you did read?
As the latest one, Elon, obviously,
Elon.
but not another one I can recall off the top of my head now. Would you recommend any?
Was that the one? Was that the one written by J.D. Vance? Is that what's not J.D. Vance? Ashley Vance, or was it the newer version? I think I read
No,
his older
by Vance.
Vance.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, I read that one as well. Pretty good. Um, well, yeah, I think Phil Knight's book, um, Shoe Dog, was very good.
yeah,
About Nike. Um, yeah, can't I've read a couple, can't think on top of my head. I did read Branson's autobiography, but that was in 2000, long time ago. I was 16 years old at that stage, and that was my first business book, I think, or second business book that I read. And that was interesting. Even at that stage, I'm sure his newer uh, Richard Branson books will be quite interesting.
yeah. To see the what he's done since then as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Is there something that you find like the biggest surprise that you weren't expecting when you became an entrepreneur, like about entrepreneurship?
I would say when I take things back to my first proper business, registered business, not just the side gig that I did in school and stuff. Um, I had a marketing promotion company and I was young. I was 21 years old. And what I find was, okay, we passed the days of business cards now, I guess. But as soon as I presented a business card or had conversations with people where I might do potentially do business with them, they take you more seriously.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's just a thing because back then I was quite young. Um, if that was the effect that I felt, or if that's still a thing. But I think there's a certain kind of call it respect that people show if you are doing your own thing, and they quite curious to hear what it is. Myself, if I hear someone is doing a certain business, I'm always so curious about what they are doing. It doesn't mean people in a salaried environment is not interesting. I'm just saying there's a little bit extra curiosity because it's usually like a journey that person has followed that you want to find out. The same
Yeah,
conversation we are having.
that's exactly why I
Um,
started this. Essentially, is indeed the entrepreneurs and business people are, I would argue, a little bit more interesting than salaried employees. I mean, I'm gonna get shit for that, but it is,
but exactly, I mean, there's nothing wrong with being a salaried person. I guess the famous story is Steve Ballmer was the PA for Bill Gates, and he became the richest salaried person in the world,
yeah,
apparently. Um, and it doesn't mean, yeah, there's what they call it entrepreneurship. I'm sure you've heard that word,
yes, yes,
entrepreneurship inside a company. Um, so Yeah, so that was the biggest thing, one of the things. And then the second thing is that it's like a snowball effect. In the beginning, you're running around figuring out certain things, and once you know those things, then that becomes second nature.
Yeah.
And then you're figuring out a higher level item or problem, and then that becomes second nature, or you build the systems or processes around you to get that, make that automated. And I'm not talking about AI, I'm more talking about being more efficient inside your business.
Yeah.
And I think that process is something that um, is relevant to any kind of business. If you look at a McDonald's or a burger store, it's, can you flip those patties and make them consistently at the same, heat? What heat are you going to use? How long must the patty be on each side? Simple things like that. In the beginning, that's where it's a struggle, and then it becomes, let's say, the business runs on autopilot, or certain parts of the business runs on autopilot. Yeah, I think those were the two things that
Okay.
I can.
Very interesting. I like what you explained with when you're starting out, you maybe struggle with certain things, and then it becomes second nature, and then you can work on like higher level problems, and you continue doing that. Do you think that I mean, I know it's valuable, but it's valuable learning those lessons yourself versus, say, from the get go, trying to implement systems for your business based on best practices, or should you go through the motions yourself with everything until you develop your own systems and it becomes second nature?
That's a good question. I think the best way to approach that is going to be on a case by case basis.
Yeah.
But also, what I find is important is when we know our own personality and how we are, we will address it differently. You find certain business people are very controlling, not in a toxic way, just in the way they run their business. And they should then recognize that they might be holding themselves back on certain items where they are not allowing the business to flow either through other staff delegation or just other systems. But then if you look at a person that's an artist, a fine artist that does paintings, his business model is painting, so he can't really delegate some of these things, but he can outsource the framing or the certain preparations in his business to to someone else or to an outsourced party. And I mean, that's a strange example. Um, so I would say you have to do the what I call I know they call it shoestring budget to start a business. Instead of borrowing money, you build it slowly with the profits you make.
Yeah.
It's, I would almost say, shoestring brains. Um, you have to understand the smallest part of the business in order to build it bigger. You can't say I'm going to skip these steps. And if we can use a burger example again, I'm not going to flip patties and see how these burgers turn out because I just want to run the accounting and the marketing of the business. Then you're gonna miss something. So I think that's a step on a step-by-step basis. You have to make those decisions, but notice your own flaws and or let's say personality traits along the way.
Okay. I think that's very valuable in like a very valuable insight. So thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe going on to what does your typical day look like as a self-employed financial advisor?
So my day changed a lot over the years. So in the early days, when I had less clients to look after on a permanent basis, a lot of my time was reading on some of the technical specifications of certain products. Even though we get full training, it's a lot of information that I try to be on top of my game with these things. That was a part of it. Another part was it trying to build relationships with people, and that part I find difficult. I'm good at building relationships, but I'm not good at um, it's fake to me if you just meet someone for the sake of meeting to try and push business down their throat. So I struggled with that part, but that worked well because um, I think I built strong relationships and not or that's what I think I'm doing, and not superficial, transactional relationships. So um, that took up more of my time. I tried to build systems, and if I'd say systems, not complicated systems that's coded or anything like that. Systems, I just mean like streamlining certain things. These forms, we use these forms a lot. Can't we pre-populate certain documents? These days there's a bit more electronic documents, which makes it easier. Back when I started, there was still a lot of manual entered documents. We still have some of those, but so then I would do that. Um, and part of that, it sounds weird, but stressing, like just stressing and thinking, okay, what am I going to do next? Where's the next client going to come from? And for me, it was without pushing for that. Um, what I think I focused on a lot was, and I'll come back to, what my day looks like now, or the last couple of years, but was that I said, and there's even studies done on this, and it's quite relevant to many businesses, is that the cost is almost 10 times more to try and acquire a new client than just to keep a current client happy. Um, so I would spend time on rather keeping current clients happy. Or, for example, certain people that I've had contact with that were not interested in doing business at that stage, I would request and ask them, can I perhaps keep you on my mailing list or keep in touch with you? And then they said, sure. And then I give them a call every now and then. I say, listen, here's something new I want to tell you. Do you mind me telling you about that? And then it's not a sales tactic or anything like that. It's really adding value. It's
Yeah.
what's the word they call it? God, there's a word for that. But anyway, so adding value, and then over time, I've built very good relationships like that, because then people come back. Anyway, and my time is spent quite different. Um, I'm now 1st of September was my 15-year anniversary in this industry. So my time is spent slightly different. It's very much the same principles. Um, but on a typical day, if it's a early day, which I prefer, try to start the day early. I'll include non-work items here. So 3 times a week, I go to gym not the normal gym, but a gym kind of class that involves calisthenics and gymnastics and all those kind of things. Anyway, that's 6 o'clock in the morning until 7. Then I have a quick breakfast, and then I try to start working immediately. And if I have meetings that I have to go out to, obviously I'll get ready for them, showering, going out, getting ready. But I work from home permanently, so some of my days, or most of my days, involve starting work immediately. And then I check my emails. I know there's a whole theory about, should you check your emails first, or should you get some focused work done first and then check your emails? I find that checking emails for me works because there is sometimes urgent stuff that needs urgent attention, and every hour or 2 hours that you don't jump on that, it causes a delay for other clients or a client experience or something like
That
that.
makes sense.
Yeah, so that's how my day starts, with my personal assistant, which is my wife, and then we run through the stuff. We debrief and then go through the to-do list for the day, and then yeah, in between, it can be very chaotic, because in between a lot of work, I also have to do the portfolio management of my clients. That's something I will also call is part of a ongoing thing. So I would listen to market news on an ongoing basis, even if I'm in the car and I have time and I don't have a phone call that I'm attending to or something like that, instead of listening to the radio, for example. So always keeping up to date with the markets. Um, then a couple of times a month, I've got market update meetings with asset managers, which are, there's many of them, but they invite me on certain meetings. Sometimes it's a one-on-one face-to-face. Sometimes it's in a group setting online, and those meetings tend to be like an hour to 2 hours long, where we discuss and can have questions, or they will address questions we have regarding other, usually it's focused on other developed markets, emerging markets, South African market, and different asset classes. So there's no specific, how can I say, pattern in a day. Some days, there's more meetings, and so forth, and less analysis. Also, another thing that we try to do on an ongoing basis is to improve our side of the, if I can say, forms, not forms, but for example, when I get a new client, I try to give them a quick snapshot of what information I need from them,
Yeah.
in case we didn't run over the information over the phone. And that form will always streamline to send to a client to fill in, and to give us the necessary information. I know I'm going in a bit more detail there. I'm just trying to say that there's no real pattern
No real
as
pattern.
such.
It's what the day brings you.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. And I imagine that to be fairly common across different industries for entrepreneurs is essentially what their day brings them, what what their emails bring them.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I realized is that, and I'm also speaking to other entrepreneurs, when you ask them what do you do on a daily basis, and they'll say they are sorting out crap. They are sorting out crap. They're replying to emails. I think people have the perception that some guy sits on a nice chair with a cigar in their mouth and they just roll in the money. It's usually a lot of responsibility for entrepreneurs to run big businesses. And this is a theme that I've realized more and more. Even I myself thought that no, but maybe certain entrepreneurs are not doing much of that. But they actually do, in between their schedules. Maybe they have a few nice moments in a day, but it's a lot of sorting out crap, especially entrepreneurs that work with staff. And you can imagine entrepreneurs, the bigger ones that deal with the media, and all the criticism from all angles,
Mm.
especially the big tech companies. And another thing, I forgot what I wanted to say now, but yeah, there was one more thing I forgot now.
No worries. So you're saying like a lot of firefighting, essentially, like putting out fires
Yeah,
here and there.
yeah. Even myself, we're busy transferring from and it's not our choice. One of our platforms is transferring to another platform at the moment, and there's some hiccups here and there. And I'm very client focused. I guess everyone says that, but I don't know what it is, but I like feel the pain of the client if they don't get joy. So there's been a case where I had to, you know, tell the client to just give me an extra day to sort this out. Then I have to communicate with the platform. And then there's a technical IT issue, that's no one can sort out immediately. And this was for a withdrawal, for example, to get their money out. I mean, money doesn't usually doesn't take long to pay out, but now it's an extra day, and
Yeah.
I think it's unfair to a client. Stuff like that. So, and I think from the outside in, maybe people think in my industry these things go smoothly all the time, but there's constant issues with pension funds. You deal with third-party pension funds that need to get money, transfer into clients' accounts, and they take forever. And it's usually the human factor is quite a big thing in working, as an entrepreneur. I think, yeah,
Yeah. So to circle back to something you mentioned earlier was like creating relationships and value-filled relationships. Do you think that as an entrepreneur that should be a high priority is building relationships?
I think so. I can't think of an industry where that won't be important. I think maybe we can throw some dice in the air and randomly choose industries. Let's say you're a tire manufacturer. I think you want to be friends with the big car companies, because sometimes these car companies decide, BMW decides we're going to only go for Bridgestone, or we can only go for Michelin or whatever. If one okay, if one is a different ball game, but so I think we can run. Maybe you can suggest something. We can run a case study quickly in our head, see if relationships is important. I think how important I think it is.
Yeah. Okay. No, fair enough. And would you give more priority to in-person relationships, or we're now in a connected world where you can send people emails or reach out to them on LinkedIn? Do you think entrepreneurs should be focusing more on one of the two mediums, say virtual versus in-person, or do you think it's equal?
Um, I think it's becoming equal.
Yeah.
I think there's a generational shift. I find with younger people, they're more comfortable to address things either via emails or uh, 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 call it online, non-impersonal meetings.
Yeah.
Um, I would say the older generation still values that more, and it's not a stereotype. I think it still differs from person to person, um, and it's kind of, I would say, a, a privilege to be able to have an in-person meeting because it takes a lot of time and resources to have in-person meetings all the time. I don't see that it's in the competitive world we live in that someone can just do in-person meetings and build relationships that way all the time. So if I hope that answered your question.
Yes, I did. That
Although I
did.
think there are businesses, yeah, there are businesses that are built on only two or three strong relationships. Maybe a company that only has two or three big suppliers, and they need to keep them happy. Once again, that's a business that's at risk if you rely only on two or three suppliers. But there are businesses that operate like that, and so then it might be much easier to keep those relationships going.
That does make sense. Yeah. Okay. And just coming back to, so you discussed that your day is never the same, and you're always, not always, but often putting out fires or like attending to things. Are there things that are repetitive and tedious that like are not nice about running a business?
Yeah, I think just handling information in general from clients, the data capturing of client information into systems is quite tedious.
Mm.
It doesn't mean I always have to do it myself. I have my help in my business. But even for them, or even for us as a business, or me as a business, that is a tedious process. If there would be some easier way, and you know, add to that, it might sound easy to say, well, the client can just enter that, but I find that some clients want the easier part of that process.
Yeah.
They want you to be on a phone call, and it's quite convenient, and you ask them the questions, and they give you the answers. And then that's also how I try to treat my clients, is to allow them to have as little admin or paperwork as possible, um, in the process. And I think that's one of the biggest things. I'm trying to think of another one to give you some substance there. I think it's just, I think one might be ignorant to think that, or at least in my business, and I've discussed it with other financial advisors as well. Um, they also, or most of the ones I've spoken to, also say that it's not easy to just have a easy process flow. You're going to have to jump around and do different things, and that's very mentally challenging because you have to play customer service, plus you have to play analytical, plus you have to play futurist, plus that's the challenging part. You can't just focus on one of those parts. If there's some kind of act to get that streamlined into little blocks of work, focus work, and then other work that will will help tremendously. I mean, there is a bit of time management that one can do that. There's even apps that try on my Microsoft app. I try to snooze my emails on my phone at least for certain hours of the day, so I don't get a notification on my phone. Although I can still see it on my laptop if I'm on my laptop. Anyway, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that answers my question. And you brought up something interesting where you said you were speaking to other financial advisors where it's mentally challenging or taxing to have to you're like analyzing things. You also need to be customer service. You also need to market your business or the products that you're selling. I don't think that's necessarily limited to financial advisor. That just sounds like running a business, right?
Mm.
What do you think?
Exactly, yeah. I agree with you. No, that's not just the financial advisor thing. I think I only mentioned the financial advisors to kind of relate to
Yeah.
what I was talking about. But I agree that's a tough one. Like especially if you look at like a plumber or electrician. I find I do have some clients that have businesses like that, and they must in their business they usually have a department or someone that does it for them, but they must chase the clients that don't pay their bills as well after the work has been done. Um, and then they must still be nice to those people if it's a recurring customer and they
Yes.
still haven't paid, but they want bigger business. It's very tricky to me. Yeah.
Fair enough. And is there one thing that you wish that just worked better? Like anything in general? Like if it could just work better?
Man, I would say attention to detail by the human race. Um, I find the human factor is a big problem
Yeah.
in most businesses, and it's the more you fight that, the more it's gonna irritate you as a business owner, I would say, and the more you accept that there's gonna be mistakes either from within your own company or with suppliers or clients that you deal with. um, yeah, the easier the road would be. At least the acceptance, you're still going to have to fix stuff, but at least if you accept it, you won't mentally torture yourself.
Accepting that there is going to be that human error at some point in the process.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. I think that's good advice. I don't know if there's a solution to that.
No, and that's the tough part. And I think there's a Jocko Willing wrote about this concept. He calls it radical acceptance. Um, it's also it can be related to people that someone that loses a leg. How long are you going to dwell on the fact that you lost your leg? Um, Radically accept it at some stage and then build your life from there. And the same with business, I guess, if there's a mistake or stuff that you need to sort out, accept it and then just take it forward. Otherwise, you'll dwell instead of being productive.
Yeah, I suppose it doesn't provide value to. I mean, I guess in the case of a leg, that that is horrible. But like, there is no value in dwelling on the fact that something has gone wrong or something there is a problem. It's just moving forward from there.
Yeah. And I think there's uh, examples of business owners that have ignored certain things instead of accepting it. It's too tough to deal with it. They've ignored it. It can either be clients that pay late, or it can be, I'm trying to think now quite broad across many businesses, or it can be, one of your staff members that are causing too much trouble. And, I'm talking way past just making a small mistake.
Mm.
And if you ignore it for too long, then it becomes a problem as well because they think that it's might be easier to ignore it and hopefully it goes away, the problem goes away. But that's also part of accepting and dealing with the problem immediately.
Mm, that makes sense. Moving into the future, interested to hear what you see you and your business doing in say 5 years from now.
Okay, so my industry, I wouldn't say is that, or in my role, is not there's not much innovation happening. There's innovation happening behind the scenes. I would say AI in terms of portfolio management, and I use AI in a limited way. I use it to summarize certain long format information pieces about markets. I use it to do comparisons. I use it, for those kind of more high volume information type stuff to summarize it for me. Um, I think the biggest challenge, or one of my biggest goals is to be more, give more information to my clients without overloading them with information. Yeah, I don't give my clients a lot of information, like on a monthly basis, long newsletters or anything like that. I feel like my relationship with them is still the most important. My clients know they can call me and I'll get back to them if I'm not available as soon as they need to be. It's a very personal touch. I think there's no a generic answer to everything. Um, and that's different for a company that is trying to build a large client base, but without the advice portion, where they just say, "Oh yeah, you can get you can get a will done." There are automated will companies. You can do a will through them, or you can buy a certain portfolio of assets through them. But then the advice portion or linking it all together, connecting all the dots is not available. So I don't know if that kind of makes sense. So
That
for
does make
me,
sense.
it's
Yeah.
to
Yeah. So, in your business specifically, like technology does play a role, but it still is a very human relationship based business, and you'd like to keep it like that.
yeah, and I know it's not going to be like that forever. And maybe it might be a competitive advantage to stay on the human side more because, that's only time will tell. Certain businesses like Kodak that tried to stay with film cameras and died out quickly. They didn't want to adapt to digital cameras. And, there's many case studies like that. But I think it's going to be yeah, personal relationships are going to be strong.
I definitely think that it makes sense going forward with AI and everything becoming very impersonal. That there will
Mm.
be value in providing human connected services. So, in your case, so it's financial advice, but you're actually speaking to a person who has your
Mm.
interests in mind, and uh, whether from a technical perspective, an AI could do exactly the same thing. There's value in being able to have that connection with a person, and I don't think it's for everybody. I think if you're looking for
Mm.
cheap financial advice, yeah, use ChatGPT, but um, there is going to be a market for like bespoke, boutique kind of service where you're paying also to have a relationship with a human.
Right. And I think the factor there is also, I think we as humans, we feel like we want to be able to hold someone accountable,
Yes.
be it the human and then the company behind that human. And in the financial field, the world has structure behind that to protect the consumers. I don't know if this will count for all industries, but I think that definitely adds to what you were saying just now.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. We're almost done, so I've got perhaps one more question for you, which is what advice would you give somebody starting their own business?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think depends which business, but then we're getting technical. Um, yeah, I would rather go for the shoestring. I'll say a few things. I'll rather go for the shoestring budget um, process than borrowing money. You'll find that you might be um, over optimistic if you think you can borrow money and just quickly roll a profit. Um, there are maybe some rare instances where that does make sense. I think if you buy a franchise that's already an existing model, then that can work. Someone has already done the hard yards. You just jump in and take over that process. If you're a process-driven person, that can be good. Um, and then the other thing is don't. It sounds very exciting, but don't go too far away from your current expertise. I once read in a book, I don't know which one it was, but they say stick to 80% of your expertise or in the industry that you are already in. Don't diversify completely and go another route. I mean, once again, there's proof on both sides that both sides can work. People that have done something completely different and made a success of it. Um, but then you can also say, all right, and your personality plays a big role. If you're a process-driven person, you get tired, um, or people tire you out, then be careful to go in a restaurant business where you think you're going to talk to people all the time. You might not enjoy it. Maybe you'll make some money, but you're not going to be the best that you can be. And I think that's something. I think it was Steve Jobs that mentioned that as well. He said you'll have to. You must be so obsessively. You must love it so obsessively that it doesn't feel like work. In a way. And I think, yeah, that's the important part. And there's that cliche that says invest in yourself. Someone asks you, where should I invest? Should I buy this or this? Invest in yourself. And I think just what I see from in my industry with dealing with a lot of people with different financial positions and different incomes, and including myself, if I look back on my journey, investing in yourself means how can you maximize your efficiency, your income potential, your mental health, because if you understand yourself properly, then you can be more efficient and you can have a higher potential income earning or income potential, and all of those things. And that means the reason I mentioned that is there's a lot of people that are trying to figure out the next big thing that they can put their savings in and triple their money in a
Yeah.
day or whatever,
Yeah.
some ridiculous time, instead of spending that time constantly investing in themselves. By the easiest way to do this, it's so obvious people don't do it, is by reading books or learning from other people that know more than you, um, like either on a podcast or whatever. But I find books are very deep, and or take that knowledge to a deeper level. Anyway, that's kind of my point, is focus on where you can earn income. You will, with your income, eventually then be able to, if you really start out, be able to invest that money in a way that you can make more money. But the most important part is to get that income going. Yeah, and a simple business making some money is better than a big potential business that might not make money, um, in my view.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
Sig, thank you very much for joining again and for dealing with all my questions. It was great to have you.
Thank you, Keegan. I enjoyed it, and yeah, we'll chat again.
Awesome.